White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki yesterday announced what many had expected. No U.S. officials will be attending the Beijing Winter Olympics, which take place just less than 2 months from now, because of what Ms. Psaki described as human rights violations. We welcome now Republican Representative John Katko of New York, ranking member of the House Committee on Homeland Security. So, Congressman, thank you so much for being with us. Give us your reaction to the decision of the White House.
Well, I applaud it. I think it's a long overdue decision. I think it's a step in the right direction. But in all candor, I think it's a half measure. I was advocating 10 months ago that we move the Olympics to another site that doesn't involve a country that's engaged in genocide of its own people. And that's what's going on in China right now, and that's what I'm concerned about.
At the same time, the United States doesn't have the authority to move the Olympics by themselves. That would take the International Olympic Committee, right?
That's right. It would take the International Olympic Committee, but there's many countries in the European Union, as well as Canada, that have recognized that Canada is involved in genocide of its people. And I think that's something we have to take into consideration right now. I mean, they're not only engaged in genocide of the people, they're engaged in routine cyber attacks against American interests, as well as interests of others all over the world. Excuse me.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. You're going to need a glass of water there, Congressman. I'm worried about you. So what about the possibility of some of the advertisers pulling back out of the Olympics? It's been suggested by some people that might be effective to put pressure on some of the companies.
Yeah, you wonder where they are. You know, they were quick to pull out of Atlanta for the All-Star game, for the baseball game. But those same actors look at China and they're like hands off. They don't want to mess with the Chinese market. But this is a moral outrage, what's going on in China right now, when we, as American people, should lead the world as far as these issues go. I mean, who would have thought that the women's tennis tour would really bring the issues to light when they sanctioned one of their tennis stars from China just because she happened to talk about sexual assault she endured when she was a young tennis player. And but now that the issue is coming to the forefront, I do applaud the administration for acknowledging that China is engaged in genocide of its people, and they are engaged in bad actions. And the question I have is, why are we going to go there and celebrate the sports and the coming together of sports in a nation that's engaged in such horrific activities of their own people? And so I think that while the measure was well taken, and I'm glad they did it, it's still a half measure, and I think we should do more.
Some people, as you know, Congressman, say that if you really say the athletes can't go, it's punishing the athletes more than it's punishing China. And we had a similar situation back in 1980, didn't we? When we boycotted the Moscow Olympics, didn't send the athletes. I'm not sure it made any difference. But Russia stayed in Afghanistan another 9 years after that.
Yeah, that's why I wish we had just moved the Olympics, because I don't want to punish the athletes. The athletes, it's not their fault. But, I mean, just think about it, though. We're going to be having these games in a country, and there's going to be people in the stands clapping, and there's going to be international sponsors there and corporate money pouring into this country. And a few hours away in the northwest province of China, they're going to have people in concentration camps, people they're forced sterilizing, people they're murdering, people involved in slave labor to the tune of 1 to 3 million Uyghur people. I don't think we've ever seen that in any Olympic venue anywhere in the world, perhaps save for what was going on in Germany in the late 30s. So to me, it's not about trying to punish the athletes, but we do have to make a statement to China, a very strong statement, that what they're doing is not good and that they're not being good citizens on the world stage. I mean, look at the cyber attacks that their state sponsored this year against the United States. And what have we done about it? We haven't done anything. And if I was a federal organized crime prosecutor for 20 years, the only thing bad guys understand is strength. President Xi is a bad guy, and he only understands strength. If we don't project strength, China's going to continue to malign activities both within their own country and all over the world, and that's what we're very concerned about.
So, Congressman, finally, let's turn to another area where the United States is trying to show strength, and that's with respect to Russia. Right now, even as we speak, we have President Biden speaking with President Putin of Russia about real deep concerns about the possible invasion of Ukraine. What should the United States do about that?
Well, again, we need to project strength. We need to let Putin know that he can't run over us. Again, Putin is sanctioning all kinds of major cyber attacks against us in our country, and we really haven't done much about that at all. And I think we are united with NATO, and we should be united with our NATO allies in telling Putin that if he does engage in this, there will be very serious economic consequences to a country, his country, that is already suffering severely from economic issues for the last several years. And if the price of oil drops again, Russia's in very big trouble. And so to me, making sure that he knows that if they go into Ukraine, there will be severe sanctions, number one. And number two, carry out those sanctions. Don't dally with them. Don't dally at all. Institute those sanctions right away. And I heard your previous guest, the ambassador, talking about that. And I think those are the types of things that could really hit Putin. So he needs to know up front that it's coming, and we need to be serious about it if it does happen.
And to make that threat of possible sanctions, particularly when it comes to Nord Stream 2, effective, do we need to do something? The United States needs something to relieve some of the pressure on natural gas for West Europe, because West Europe would be the people who would really get hit the hardest.
Yeah, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline that's from Russia to Germany, this is one of the concerns I had with it, and why this administration should not have sanctioned it and should have opposed it. That gives Russia an undue influence on Western Europe, or Western Europe may have to compromise what may be their other political stances and values to make sure they get home heating energy rather. And we have a plentiful supply in the United States, and would be happy to be a partner to help them out. Maybe we should do what we can to help them out. But we shouldn't have an over-reliance on Russian energy to supply the democracies of Western Europe. That's a recipe for disaster in my mind.
Congressman, it's always a pleasure and a privilege to have you with us as Congressman John Katko. He's the ranking member on the Homeland Security Committee.